Hey, welcome back to the Righteous Savages podcast, and today we have a very special guest, Dave Rhoden. And guys in the firearms and tactical industry know Dave Rhoden well. He used to work for 511. He now works for Vertx. Very, very well known in the firearms tactical world as just a guy that designs and helps test out products. And we are here today to kind of tell his story, lift the curtain, and let you guys know what kind of is in the background of Mr. Rhoden. So welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep. So,
absolutely. I thought, when we started Righteous Savages last year, we felt pretty confident because our logo, just Righteous Savages, sounded cool. The logo that got designed for us was pretty cool. So I felt like we had a head start, but I think we're a couple steps behind the Flagrant beard the logo, man. That's really one of the top brands out there in the industry, I think. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
I've tried to shave it off a couple of times, but the wife's like, can you cover that back up, please?
No
as a fellow facial hair enthusiast, so what was the idea behind the design, or the way you do your facial hair there?
That's a good. All right. So I kind of got in the habit of growing out a beard for SHOT Show every year, and then it kind of caught on at 511, so a lot of us grew it out. So I came back from SHOT. I was living in San Clemente, near Pendleton, and I went in just to kind of get it cleaned up. And the barber there was like, "Hey, I've got this idea. Is there any chance that you would let me just shave something into your beard, and I won't even charge you for the shave?" So dude, I could care less. We had a PBR coming up that we're sponsors for. So dude, the guy spent about an hour shaving this in, and when I came out, I was like, "Huh, there it is. It works." So I went to work the next day. Tom Davin, our CEO, walked by and he goes, "That is a Flagrant beard." And I was like,
Yes.
I think I'm going to register that URL, just in case someday.
Just ignore him, act like you didn't say it.
Right. Tom Davin gets the credit.
Nice.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you've been in the kind of tactical firearms world for quite a while.
Officially since February 2006, March 2006, March 1.
So close to 20 years.
Yeah, but I kind of grew up in it too.
Yeah.
Like I was the nerd kid who would clip out articles when guys were deployed, and I'd go and spend my money at the Army surplus store. So I would buy the kit and the gear. I had 750 acres of wood and swamp behind my house in Florida, and I was in the woods almost every day. I just loved it. That was my jam.
Yeah. What part of Florida?
Orlando, where the Big Mouse lives.
Right. Yep.
Yep. My youngest son lives there right now. He works for the Big Mouse.
Yeah.
So a lot of backstory there, but he's having a good time except for this hurricane that's about to blaze through Central Florida now, and it's all going to be.
It's been a crazy hurricane season, North Carolina and everything else. It's pretty insane, but So let's start with kind of the background of Dave Rhoden. We know you started you grew up in Florida. We just said that. Yep. So kind of what was your path to getting into the industry?
Yeah. So my dad was a firefighter and became a shooter, and his best friend was also a firefighter, became a chief, and then was also on the side a volunteer deputy and was a range master for them. So I can't remember the first time I ever went shooting because I've just always shot. But I was raised more on the marksmanship side, right? Like it was all for accuracy. We always had contests to see who could get the best grouping or shoot the matchbox off of something, and it was almost all handgun growing up. I cut my teeth on Smith & Wesson 357, 38 special revolvers, and then moved into when the Orange County Sheriff's Department went to the stainless steel Smith & Wesson. I remember the model 450 something, I don't know. We went to that one next, then Glock came out and, went the Glock route for a long time. But yeah, basically, it was raised around firefighters and law enforcement. My grandfather was a tail gunner in a B-17, so raised as a scout and very patriotic. And I thought I wanted to go the military route. I just didn't know what I didn't know until I was, fast forward on down the road, married with kids. I was like, oh, dude, this is what I should have done. The wife's like, we didn't, too late. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Me too. So I did 29 years in law enforcement. And it's funny how once you start getting into firearms in the tactical world and the SWAT world, how those two lanes, military and law enforcement, if nothing else, cross paths quite a bit.
Well, especially during the beginning of GWAT, right? Like there were a lot of my buddies who were on SWAT teams who were teaching special teams how to do breaching, right? Like they didn't know how to do entry because that CQB thing was kind of a new thing for our military in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's a very circular learning system because when I first, probably about 2009 or 10, started going and doing a lot of training on the kind of the military side, going down to Mid-South of Mississippi and so a lot of the places that some tier 1 groups would go train. And you start picking the brains of these guys, like who taught you guys? Who was teaching, Force Recon and Navy SEAL guys? Who was teaching you guys like how to shoot? Like where did you guys learn these tactics from? And the answer was usually cops, like LAPD SWAT or some other, high speed civilian law enforcement unit was training them in part. So it wasn't like some magic place where people will go to figure this stuff out all by their own. It usually evolves down to, I heard this stuff from some other dude. It's nothing brand new. Nobody's really coming up with new stuff. But it was very interesting how those worlds, are intermixed, and one's always teaching the other. It's back and forth, or a circle, or whatever you want to call it. But
I'd say the competitive shooting industry is really what's driving our tactics right now. Look at Max Michel and all those guys on that side of the house, right? That's where I think most of our shooters are picking up the new techniques and the new gear and stuff.
And let me ask you this: in the industry that you're in, as far as gear and clothing and accessories, in the industry, are there a lot of folks like you that have got decades of experience, or do you also have to deal with?
You just maybe feel super old. Decades of experience.
Hey, man,
they have more hair than you.
Embrace it right now. I tell people, it's like when a kid's like 7 years old, and you ask them how old they are, they're going to tell you they're 7.5. Cops are the same way. How long have you been a cop? 28 and a half years. Most people embrace the extra age part of it, hey, so just accept it for now. But do you have to deal with people in the industry that just went to college to learn business and they don't have any experience like in the real world? Do you see a lot of folks that really are, squared away in the industry? It's a little bit of both.
It's a really big mix. It's a significant range.
And it probably needs to be, I guess it can't just be all, goofballs like us that go out and pull triggers all day. It's got to be, somebody that's kind of into the, geeking out on the business side of things and that type of thing. But sometimes that might seem like a roadblock. Like you might know, like, listen, we need this piece of gear to have this. And somebody else might be like, nah, we're not going to do that.
So I had one of the best jobs in the world for a while when I was at 5'11", and basically my job is to go out and embed myself with tier 1 teams and end users and figure out where their pain points were, harvest ideas, and bring them back to the team to take to market. And I'll tell you that every team thinks they're the best. So I've had the been fortunate to train with Air Force PJs. I've been really good friends with Kyle Lamb. The guy is amazing, one of the world's best instructors. He's a former unit guy, obviously. MARSOC guys. SEALs, and they've all been trained in essence to think that they're the best, but they all do have different techniques. And for a long time there, I was living in San Clemente, so I got to go down to Coronado, and one of my buddies was a third phase instructor. So I would jump in and shoot with them, and they were one of their instructors they'd brought over from the unit, and he was just a rigger, but he was head and shoulders above, I think, what was going on there at the time. And I don't think they realized that they were 4 to 6 years behind even Rangers in some of their techniques, kit, and gear. And then I've been out with MARSOC, and unfortunately, like every one of those guys at MARSOC, they had rust on their rifle. And then the other side of it is you have the PJs who get issued a new rifle every year. And you walk into their cage and like, yeah, here's my 6, watches and my 6 sets of iPro, and here's our bay full of brand new quads, and here's the next bay to replace those if those go down.
The Air Force and the Gucci gear.
So no doubt. There's no doubt. My son, like says, in the Air Force, he's in an EOD unit, and the amount of money that gets. It's literally they have no idea what to spend money on. They have to almost make stuff up, what to buy. So they are very well outfitted.
Get to the end of that fiscal year and you spend it or you lose it.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't spend it? Well, you don't need it next year, so you better spend it. So has it kind of taught you over the years, like as far as a skill set of like developing it, your own. I don't know if skill set's the right word, but how much input now, like what you're doing now, is like from beginning to end design of stuff, like on some of the bags and stuff we were shooting with today. How much are you involved in that process? Are they like giving you, a blank check almost and be like, hey, Dave, like we need a new bag. How's that process work for you?
Yeah. So first what I'll say is I think the trick in this industry is to shut up and listen. Always be a student, always keep learning. And what I always tell people whenever I'm in any group is like, I don't know what you do as well as you do. If you tell me what you need to have done, I'll relay that and take it back. So, Dan Costa was the founder of 511. He came from the restaurant industry, and his whole thing was, going out to the table, taking down, your order. Mm-hmm. And, for his high-end restaurant, they'd go out and they'd make exactly what you wanted, right? And he'd send people to the store if they didn't have it in the back to come back and make it up. So his whole thing was like, just listen. I mean, dude, look at me. I've got really big ears, so I'm born to do that apparently. But yeah, just be humble, right? And always be a student because things do, evolve. As far as my role right now, officially, I'm the director of training and field marketing. So I helped out on the Vertx side of the house for about 4 years or so with product development and helping out that. And then I've progressed and moved on to different assignments with them. Mm. So I have not been so much on the product development side of the house in the last 2 years as I've been in the previous, 8 or so. If that answers your question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do relay. We relay the product back, the information back, and we're always looking for new ideas.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of your own stuff going on besides just working for Vertx, right? I mean, you've got, I want to see if you can kind of tell us about kind of the Flagrant beard brand of kind of what you got going on and kind of, there's, the industry of multimedia and social media and YouTube and video stuff is just a big thing going on right now. And a lot of people are trying to capitalize on that, us included. But kind of, how did kind of take us back to how you maybe started with your own, personal product development, website development, and kind of when you started getting into that side of things and how that's going now.
Sure. So I was with 511 Tactical for almost 9 years. When we left California, moved to Tennessee, moved back to America, we knew we wanted to start our own business. We didn't know exactly where we wanted to start the business. And I think if I could go back in time, obviously I wouldn't have knocked my shins as many times. Along the way, you learn a lot as you do start your own startup business. And had a couple of different people help me out that I was able to reach out to on like the web development side. So, be friends with everybody, because you never know when you have to call on somebody for help. So we had a lot of friends kind of help us with that. And then just through relationships, I was able to, and we just started a little website, right? It's just the e-com site. We started out with some knives, Bill Coy of Coy Knives. Let's do a flagrant variation of that. And then I had a buddy of mine, Scott Shanaker, who was a long time retired out of law enforcement, who was a knife designer. I shouldn't say I forced him into being a knife designer because he was always a collector of, knives, big into martial arts. And he was always like, these people don't do it right, or that person doesn't do it right. I'm like, well, let's make one together that you feel would work for you guys. So we came out with our little Flagrant Havoc. It was a blade that he wanted to have, a ring knife that designed to be behind basically your mag pouch. So you can pull it out. It's kind of a get off me knife. And then we worked on a tomahawk from there. And then I was able to reach out to other partners and friends in the industry and be like, hey, would you let me sell your stuff and just do drop ship? So it was just kind of a very much of a crawl, walk, run approach to it. My wife will tell you that I've treated our business like a redheaded stepchild. I've kind of neglected it. And she's like, you know what to do for everybody else. Why don't you do it for us? And I'm like, dude, it's hard for me to think about that. I kind of want to be attached to a mission. I don't know, for somebody else, and I just have a hard time helping ourselves out. Yeah. I know it sounds really stupid to say. My wife would kill me for that, but you just kind of do what you can, I guess.
Yeah. So, in that, in your time with 511 and doing all of this training with these high level operators, police and military, what experiences and training have kind of shaped who you have become as when it comes to having your own business and kind of trying to figure out the things that work for you? Like, has that training, how has that affected how you approach, the industry and design and really where you see yourself going?
There's always somebody better and faster. Find mentors. Like I said, I mentioned, Kyle and his wife, Melinda Lamb. They're like my big brother and sister. And I've been really blessed to have them as somebody I can call on as neighbors, also as my, as mentors. Both on a business perspective, but also on a personal relationship side. We have kids, but I think we all have kids. We got 6 kids, and when you have, troubles and issues, It's nice to be able to have mentors around you that you can reach out to.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that's key to have,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. No, and that's, I think that's really a part of it when we approach training, when we approach any part of life. We need to have somebody that's walked ahead of us. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a biblical thing. The older teach the younger,
Right.
and that's really the whole idea of training. You learn, just like this guy sitting next to me. I've learned a ton from him. I learned a ton from other instructors in the firearm world. That's just, I think, just good, smart, a smart outlook to have when you're walking through life of, always be looking for somebody better than you so they can make you better.
And to give back. I've been blessed to be able to be given a lot of skills that, I've been brought into different training events, whether, all over the world, and it didn't cost me a thing. Right. So, I've been able through the years to be able to spend a lot of my time helping church security teams either stand up or run them through drills, best practices. And it's, I don't charge for that stuff because it didn't, it was given to me. Right. So I want to share that with other people to help make them more prepared. I think that's something else. It's your job, not just to sit on that knowledge. You need to be able to share the knowledge with other people too.
Yeah. I think there's a small, and I think it is a small section of the industry that's very much like, we shouldn't be training people this stuff. They try and hold on to those secrets and stuff. And I think by and large, when you talk about the firearms and tactical industry, the people that really care are the ones that are going to impart that knowledge to people.
Well, that's what I like about our industry too. Like, I was raised going to a gun range where, somebody shows up with a gun you've never shot before. That guy hands it to you. You shoot his gun. He shoots your gun. Like we did today, right? We all show up with different stuff. And it's like, dude, we blast your gun. And I think just keep it going, right? With other.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool is that though, that you could just tell your kids, hey, just run down to Mr. Lamb's house. Everything will be fine.
Quite honestly, my son Logan has spent quite a time. Kyle's known Logan since he was probably like 3 or 4.
Is Logan your oldest?
He's my oldest. Yeah, he's 20 now.
My oldest is Logan as well. He's 12.
He's my oldest guy's 20. He's in the Army now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's been a mentor to him also, and it's been cool to see him, grow up.
Yeah. He seems like a very approachable guy. I've never met him, but he seems like a very, very just kind of down to earth, salt of the earth type people.
He's probably jealous. He's got kind of not what we'd call a flagrant beard, but he's got a little bit of a. He's got the
going
on there at some point.
He's got the mountain man beard. That's what I would say. Yeah. So we met a couple months ago in August at the Gun Owners of America convention down in Knoxville, and while we talked for quite a while. You told me a funny story and scary story from your days in California, and had something to do with the TGI Fridays and maybe some nefarious characters in that restaurant. So
yeah. Okay, so for about 14 months, I would fly out on a Sunday night from Seattle down to Sacramento, drive from Sac to Modesto, and I'd work there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fly home Wednesday night, plus international travel, domestic travel, trade shows, everything else. So I got smoked for about 14 months. But when I go down there, I would, I'd work till 8:30 at night, and call in an order, maybe took a TGI Fridays and pick it up on the way home, and we had a flop house we'd crash at. So I don't know if you're familiar with Modesto, but it's kind of the armpit of California, and I apologize to people who live in Modesto, but it is what it is. So it's basically the halfway point or the layover point between Mexico and Canada, right? So you have a lot of gang activity there, and you kind of get used to it, kind of like white noise in the background. Mm-hmm. You kind of just are familiar with it, and you see that stuff. So one night I was working again till like 8:30. I call in an order to TGI Fridays, and then I drive it over to pick up my food. And as I'm walking up to the restaurant, I see a couple norteños, hanging out with their girls, chatting outside the restaurant. And again, it's kind of like just background noise, right? You see them, and they got their colors and they're talking to them. You just kind of walk past them. You don't bother them. They're not going to bug you really. And I walk in and tell the hostess, hey, I'm here for pickup order. She's like, yeah, just walk around to the bar and we'll bring it out to you. I was like, cool, thanks. And as I'm walking in, I kind of just had the corners of my eyes, notice there's some big dudes at the doors. Okay. So walking over to the bar and I'm standing there and I'm looking across and I'm like, dude, there's actually a lot of guys in here. Now that I think about it, the entire place is all guys. There's no females. There's one female, and she's right across from me, sitting next to her guy, and that's the guy with the big, long ZZ Top silver beard. He's about 260 pounds, and he's the grand poobah of what I've walked into, which is basically a Norteños gang meeting, right? Like they're having an after action of some kind. And I just walked into it. Now the kicker was I worked for 511 at the time, so I'm wearing the 511 Fed uniform of the dark navy blue polo tucked into my 511 pants, and 511 boots, and I'm just like, oh great.
You were only missing the jacket. This is the aisle.
Yeah. I'm looking like a Fed walking into a Norteño gang meeting. I'm like, hi guys, So I look
that was the birth of the gray man clothing for 511.
Right. So the next day, right? Yeah. So I look behind me. I have an emergency exit right behind me, and I'm like, that'd be a little odd though if I ran out, So I'm like, I'm going to play it the same way I came in, just aloof, happy. So the lady brings me my bag of food, and I'm just like, smile and walk way out the same way I came in, So I called my buddy that night and left him a couple of messages like, hey, I think I walked in on a Norteños gang meeting. Like, they're all here, by the way. So next day he calls me back right away. He's with the FBI out of Sacramento. He ran their gang task force. And he was like, okay, here's what you walked in on. Just so you know, we've been running about 2.5 months, 3 months sting operation. The day before, we just rounded up and arrested about 40 Norteños. And you basically walked in on the who screwed up meeting, right? This is the hot wash for them. Yeah. And he's like, I know this because the year before we did a similar operation, and they had that meeting at the Elephant Bar. So he's like, here's my number, my other number. If something happens like this again, this is what you call. So that's what I walked in on.
Wow, that's one of those moments where you're like, oh, well, can
I tell another little funny story?
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
So again, these are the earlier days of 511. We were growing at 40% a year, right? So we're interviewing people to take over our flashlight division. We're starting to do some flashlights. And one of our VPs brought me in. He's like, Dave, I'm having kind of a weird vibe on this guy I'm interviewing. I don't know if he's right for us. Why don't you go interview him and just kind of get a feel for him, right? So I go in and meet with a guy, and he kind of comes across as that slick salesperson. He's got, at the time, like the tighter dress slacks, no socks, kind of showing with the dress shoes, and you're just kind of, not really our people. You're right, yeah. So I start talking to him like, well, hey, you realize if you work for us, you probably have to wear 511 clothing. How do you feel about that? He's like, oh, I've got no problem wearing that stuff. Oh, that's great. You realize that there's people out there who just, shoot cops for no reason. Oh, yeah. Well, you realize you're going to be kind of looking like a law enforcement officer. At that point, he just kind of like went white and blank. And I think the interview was over at that point. I walked out and like, yeah, he's not for us. And I think he withdrew right afterwards. So you can use that for our advantage too,
Yeah, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's really cool. I do remember that when I first met you, and I'm sure you don't really remember, but in 2013, we started Tombstone Gun Range. And that January of 2013, came out to 511, or came out to SHOT Show, really, but hung out with a few guys, and everybody was just cool and very, like you said, there was a lot of humble people. Everybody was a lot, Kyle Lamb had just, I think, started doing some VTAC products a couple years before that. Everybody was real approachable. And especially for a dude like me who was a nobody just from Illinois, around a gun range, it was really cool. So it's neat to see kind of how you and other people have kind of branched out to do their own stuff now, and it's cool how at some point having a good experience. And I'm not trying to tell you or speak for you, but I think a lot of people that start off with a good kind of, whether it's on a football team or in the military, that team environment where you're working with a lot of people with the same mission, it has an impact on people. And going through hard times, like, those 14 months of traveling all the time and working late, that kind of builds. I think in America today, we don't see a lot of resiliency. We see, unemployment is 4%, but if you go down to Chick-fil-A, they're busy because there's like 3 people working there. Like, right. How come nobody has jobs? There's jobs everywhere, but nobody wants to work them. Everybody wants free stuff. It's so frustrating. It's just, I don't want to be a doomsday type of person, or I don't want to be negative all the time, but I think we're kind of to the point in America where we have to really start being serious about being concerned about our security. We can do just as a family, as individuals, to kind of prepare ourselves a little bit for, it might not be the apocalypse. It might be you're living in Orlando and there's a natural disaster, you're heading your way. what do you think are some things that we can do individually to kind of help prepare ourselves, or at least get started, preparing ourselves for uncertain times?
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so first of all, the caffeine's kicked in. So if I start talking too fast, and he's slipping me over like the hot topic right now, right? Yeah. Perfect timing. Faith, family, and friends. You gotta be rooted in what you believe. Share it with your kids and your family, right? So they know the right way to go, and then develop a network of people who are like-minded. That's kind of at the macro level, right? Micro level, training. And it's not, I was telling somebody this the other day, I see a lot of guys who feel like, I should own a firearm, so they go out and buy a gun. And then they're like, I should get some training. Okay, good. So they go and get some training. But nobody's taught them how to break down their gun, how to clean it, how to maintain it, where to do it, right? How to break it down in a safe manner. And then beyond that, medical. Like, you're far more likely to use medical than a firearm. And whether it's seeing somebody in a car wreck along the side of the road, we had a couple guys on our church safety team. 1 year, we have storms, using a chainsaw. The dude almost cut his hand off with a chainsaw. A limb fell and hit his chainsaw and hit his hand. He was able to self-apply a tourniquet, and we had just done a tourniquet training like the year before, or even a few months before. Next year, somebody else, or 2 years later, somebody else hit their arm with a chainsaw, and just again, he was able to self-apply a tourniquet. And these are people who live out in the country. And both times, I'm actually like, dude, if you hadn't applied that, you probably would have bled out before we could have gotten to you. So I think the medical is a big piece. Yeah. And then figure out where different people have complementary skill sets. Fill in each other's gaps. Somebody might be a commo guy or knows how to work the radios, or somebody else is maybe a medic. Somebody else is going to be that food person, or they know how to clean animals or whatever it is, process meat. Figure out what your network is of like-minded people, and like with COVID, everybody shut down. Dude, we didn't shut down out in the sticks where we live. We just rotate people's houses to have a group dinner with, and guys were chipping and helping each other build decks or whatever needed to be done. We had some extra time.
Yeah. Sounds like there's an opportunity for some chainsaw safety training.
Right? Chainsaws are bad.
Let's see. We're going to have to switch up.
You're absolutely correct, though. But like literally, what's it been, about a month ago, I'm driving home from work. Literally, the path that we took from the range to here.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, follow me here. It's super dangerous.
I pulled off to turn by the airport there, and as I was pulling off, right in front of me, a car accident happened. And I jumped out, grabbed my med bag. I applied medical to 2 people, helped them get out of their cars, called the police, gave them a report. And, if I hadn't trained on that stuff, I wouldn't have known what to do. Nothing was like life-threatening, but just being able to, on a burn from an airbag going off and that kind of stuff, being able to do that stuff is really important, and it's probably the thing you're going to run into the most.
One of my passions is true safety teams, right? Well, the thing you're going to see more often than anything else is somebody with low blood sugar, right? So just knowing how to help somebody with that, or knowing where AEDs are placed throughout the facility to be able to help people out.
Yeah. In store for Dave Rhoden, as far as like what's your next step with the Flagrant beard and all that stuff? What's kind of in your future here?
That's a good question too. Oh boy, I hope my wife's not listening or watching this. Flagrant beard, we have to figure out what we want to do with that. Again, I just need to figure out what we want to do with that.
Yeah.
Well, on the Vertx side of the house, and Fetchheimer's the parent company, and there's 2 brands underneath them, Flying Cross and Vertx. And that's really been taking up a lot of my time. I do a trip for them about every other week or almost every week. It kind of depends on what's going on. So I've been all across the country. So you were asking earlier, I think, about what are you seeing, and, or maybe me being sheltered in Tennessee. Trust me, I'm seeing everything across the country, especially when you go downtown to all the different cities and you see them boarded up. A lot of these cities look like they're going out of business sales.
Yeah.
So from that side, it's on the Flying Cross, Vertx side of the house, is really kind of just figuring out how I can better the other employees that we have, trying to elevate everybody's skill sets and move the needle to get the right products into the right end users.
Yeah.
And that's really what my passion is, and listening to those end users and, again, trying to attach myself to a mission.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Without a purpose, we kind of lose sight of who we are. Yeah, I think especially for us men, we need to have something to work towards, something to strive for.
I kind of mentioned it earlier about giving back. It's not that I'm giving back, but in essence, we're at this age now where we are tenured, decades of experience. I think were your exact words.
Sorry,
but it is on us now to start sharing some of those life skills with people that we meet, whether it's a coworker, a friend we meet, somebody in our community, to elevate everybody around us, right? If we see someone doing something at the range or in life that's, hey, do you know how that's going to end? I mentioned earlier, knocking my shins along the way on the business side, right? If I can help somebody else avoid that and help you connect the dots from A to B a little bit faster and more efficiently, I should do that,
Yeah.
Yep. I think the trend, and it's been this way for a while now, and John mentioned it a little bit earlier, that it used to be, especially in the SWAT world, and I'm sure it was the same in the military as well. When you get assigned to a specialty unit or a team, it's not like they're like, oh, hey, Rhoden, come on in. We're gonna show you how we do everything, and here's all the gear, and we want you to be one of us. It was very much of, you're gonna have to earn this over a long period of time. Like, you had to shut up, be humble, don't say a word for 1 year. Okay, great. And then the next 2 years is like, here, drive the truck for 2 years. And then 3 years after that, and finally, after 8 years, somebody might be like, okay, here's how we do the tactics side of things. And now the trend is we're gonna try and tell everybody, the brand new, the guy's been a cop for 2 months, we're gonna tell you everything we know right now, because you might be the person that's saving my wife in an armed robbery in a store somewhere. I need you. The community needs you to have this information. There's no holding back anymore. There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be any secrets out there that we're holding on to make guys earn that information. And hopefully for all the cops out there, like, we need to give all the new folks everything right now, as much as they can handle.
Yeah. So I told you I travel quite a bit for work. And a couple of years ago, I got to go down to the city of Orlando. I did a ride along with one of the guys from their SWAT team at night. And their chief, and he was newer at the time to being the chief, came from the SWAT side. He implemented something where he now has like a mentor program where each SWAT member takes somebody who's newer out and works with them one-on-one to elevate their skill sets. And I think that's phenomenal. I think it's a great way to do it. To your point, you're painting that picture of a vision of, hey, this is where we're going to get to, or here's what we're all working towards. But sharing those skills, and that was something that was. It really, I guess, I don't want to say endearing, but it got the troops' morale up. You know what I mean? Like, everyone felt like they were getting some extra skills along the way. And I think that makes the more tenured people feel like they're valued because they have something they can impart, and it makes the new guys feel like someone's investing in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Goes a long way, man. So one of the things I wanted to just kind of ask you real quick is what's some stuff that Dave Rhoden likes to do outside of traveling the country every week, just if you were at home for 4 hours and the wife and kids were gone and somebody said you got 4 hours to do whatever you want to do, what would Dave Rhoden be thinking about?
Holy cow, 4 hours to myself?
Yep.
You heard me say I have six kids, right? I don't even know who that person is. Honestly, it would be more like a date with my wife. We kind of try to do, we have a gym we've set up in our barn. Our morning date time is working out together. And then, we try to get in at least one, if not two. We have the 6 mile loop we do. And that hike is our one-on-one time where we can, talk, but we get a little exercise in at the same time. And it's a good way for us to decompress and share things that, hey, this is what's happening. Because I'll tell you, every time on the walk, I'll say something. She's like, what were you holding on that piece of information for? Like, when were you going to tell me that? I was like, I was going to tell you, I guess, the next time I had 4 hours to myself. So it's a good chance for us to catch up. So I love to be outside. If I had 4 hours to myself, dude, I'm one of those guys. So, I like to go to the beach. If I grew up in Orlando, but I mean, I could walk down the beach for hours and not have any issues whatsoever. I just get, let me go to the beach, let me go in the ocean. That's where I would chill. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I think that really the key thing when you get to a point where you've got all these kids, and I've got 3 under the age of 12 and under, and so our life is chaos right now. And I'm sure you understand that. And finding those times to be alone with your spouse, it's like gold. Like you just can't. You don't get that many of those, and so it's really important to cultivate that for sure.
It's funny how that seems like to me. The older you get, just I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but the less you feel like you need. So it reminds me of like Sam Walton driving like a 1940 pickup truck. You know, the guy's got have billions of dollars and
still driving his old truck.
Didn't want to waste money on a new truck, you know, or whatever. And sometimes, you know, our time is the same way. It's like, well, you know, let's, instead of going to a golf course for 4 hours, you know, we can, you know, play in the yard, play wiffle ball with the kids for a couple hours. It's like life becomes maybe, you know, what we seek out a little more simple, just because you realize how important family and friends are and that type of thing. So, but yeah, I'm a big Florida fan myself. We try to get down there, obviously, with a kid working in Orlando who gets 50% off discounts at the place where the mouse works. We end up going down there quite a bit.
50% is still not cheap.
No, they're still. I feel like we should own part of the place by now. But
yeah. So yeah, it's a really cool. You know, a lot of people say you find what you love to do, and then you'll never work a day in your life. Is that kind of what you feel like being in this industry of like, just, you know, this is something I'm passionate about, and so it's easy for me to do?
I've heard both sides of that story, right? Because if you listen to like Evan Hafer from Black Rifle Coffee, he talks about that same thing. He's like, dude, I work my butt off and I love what I'm doing. You're like, you know, it's a lot of work. So it is a lot of work, but I do love what I do. I mean, I was the guy when I first started in 511 where I would check my phone in the middle of the night because I knew there were cops who were working, you know, graveyard shifts, right? And I wanted to be the dude who replied to them and knew that I cared enough. So I would, you know, reply to them while they're on their shift. And I liked doing that. You know, I that's kind of how I like to show that I'm, you know, in it for the guys.
And those guys remember that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. So it is one of the things. It's hard for me to separate sometimes, but it's also the same deal where like sometimes especially early in the career, I felt like the weekend lasted forever and I couldn't wait for Monday because I couldn't wait to get back out there again. Yeah. So yeah, and then you have to balance that against your family and the wife saying, you know, hey, you are gone half every month. No, I'm not gone. Here's the dates. Let me highlight them. You're like, oh, I am half. Yeah, that's half. Yeah, it adds up that way.
Yeah, that's a juggling match for sure. Yeah. So, yeah. So
well, let me turn it back to you guys. How would you, and what would you recommend for turning society around?
So
I'm teeing this up because I have a huge soapbox for me to go off on this.
Oh,
so I want to hear your answer first.
Yeah. So my answer would definitely be very much similar in line with you. I think it's faith, family, community, building those relationships around you. I think that this country is not going to get turned around because a certain political figure got elected. It's going to turn around because the people on the grassroots actually started caring. They got out of their comfort zone, because I think we're so comfortable in this country because, you know, we could order food sitting here right now. I could get my phone. We could order food and it would be here in 20 minutes, whatever we want. And we can watch just about any movie that we want to watch. We can get access to people around the world at a moment's notice. We are so comfortable that we don't understand the gravity of the situation that we're in. I think that's really one of the biggest problems, is that people that really could help turn this thing around aren't engaged. As part of our mission is to engage people and get them out of their comfort zone. We have a shirt that says comfort is your enemy. And I truly believe that, because if you're in a comfort zone, you're going to get lazy. You're going to get lackadaisical. You're not going to.
Your thing is, I'm so old and beat up. There's nothing comfortable about even sitting anymore, right?
I'm getting there, man. My back and knees. Yeah. After a training day or a training weekend, I'm like, oh, I need a rest. But
sorry, not old. Decades of experience.
We're going to live that down. I'm going to get you a shirt, man, that says decades of experience.
At least it's only 2 decades for you. It's 3 decades.
Yeah. But no, I think that it is important to start in the sphere of influence you have. So if it's just your family, start with your family. If you have a community influence, start with your community. If you have a larger influence, if you're a politician or a celebrity or an influencer, start there. But don't be afraid of speaking out about those things.
Yeah, I think speaking out helps the people that are just kind of in the middle to rise up and become much stronger supporters of the community. My gut feeling is I see America, and we already see it, it's kind of going back to segregation, and not on a racial level, but just on a political and class and belief level. It's like you look at, the map of an election and, it's like the East and West Coasts are blue, the middle of the country's red. So, maybe, Western Tennessee, is full of people that align with your values. It's probably going to stay that way. I'm guessing when things, the country, let's say the worst person you could ever imagine gets elected and immigration's going crazy and other things that we, believe in aren't happening.
It's not 2020.
Flashback. It is possible that things in certain places, parts of the country are going to start getting worse and people are going to leave and start going to places throughout the country where they're not and where there are standards and where there are people that believe. So I think it's almost like you're shaking up the bottle that's full of oil and water and people are going to start going to where they fit in. So I guess I'm more pessimistic than a lot of people. I don't really see, really all we can do is pray about it. Pray, for God's will to be in place and that hopefully we're in that and we're protected and that we can influence other people the best we possibly can and be able to accept that, things might be rough, things might go hard, but, God ultimately is in control of things regardless of how crazy and wild they look. And just have the confidence to live in that and try to influence as many local people as we possibly can. So that's my convoluted kind of short answer for that. But it's going to be difficult.
Okay, and I don't have a box, but go ahead.
All right, so this is going to be a tangent, I think.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
I'll go down this.
We're here for it.
So obviously you were in law enforcement for 29 years, right? So we're probably about the same age. I can remember when, before tasers and post tasers, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you look at crime in society and crime rate, I feel like there's an exponential interchange between when tasers were introduced and prior. And my perspective is prior to tasers, if somebody did something stupid, they got lumped up. Remember the old nightsticks, the aluminum shaft nightsticks? If it took you 6 weeks to heal it from a broken arm, that gave you time to reflect on your life choices, right? And, kind of biblically, sparing out the rod, you have the rod and the staff, right? Well, if a lamb wandered off, you break a leg. But also at the same time, you had to mend that lamb, right? You don't carry that lamb with you or keep it next to you. So you had a responsibility once you did implement that discipline.
Yep.
I think that's where we kind of fell apart. I think that we kind of lacked the mentorship after the breakage, but I think breakage is something significant to not be undervalued. So as tasers became more and more relevant, we got away from the firearm, we got away from defensive tactics, we got away from combatives. Allowed to apply ventricular lateral restraints or whatever they're called.
Lateral vascular.
Yeah, thank
restraint.
you. So, which is a very effective, dude, if the person's unconscious, he's not going to hurt you, right? You're not going to apply cuffs in a safe manner, etc. So I think people have come to realize, well, dude, I'm going to get tasered and I'm 100% afterwards. And then give me my 3 hots in the cot. So I think that there's something to be said for a physical interaction. I can remember in the old days when guys, if they did something stupid in jail, it's time for an elevator ride. And that person got squared away during that elevator ride.
You just tripped up in the elevator.
Right. So again, it's probably not the most politically correct thing to say, but I think that we've lost our ability to discipline society. And I think it's also on parents. Parents have gotten so much softer. And you think about generational, from my dad having to cut his own switch and you better go back and get a bigger one if it's not big enough to, me getting spanked with a belt or paddles and everything else. And now people it's like timeout or, self-affirming, how do you feel about that? Why do you want to, sometimes you just need to have the discipline, in my opinion.
It's like Eddie Murphy said in the movie Life, there's going to be consequences and repercussions. But today there's not. Yep. There's not consequences or repercussions. That's why you see videos of like high school kids screaming at a teacher and spitting at them, and the teacher just sits there, and your wife's a teacher and knows all about it. Like, oh, we can't touch anybody. We just have to sit there. We have to take it. It's like, no, you don't. And one of my pet peeves lately is watching all these flash mob like robberies where 10 guys go into an iPhone store and they steal every
break
iPhone,
all the glass,
or they go into some store.
And people are standing around videotaping this robbery, not doing anything.
Just watching. And I want to encourage I don't even know if this is the right thing to say. Somebody's got to stand up, and I've decided I'm going to stand up. If some dude walks out of Walmart with 5 carts full of Tide laundry detergent and is going to try and load them up in a van,
Go back to the LA riots when you had the Koreans on the rooftops.
yes.
Did our stores get messed with?
No, because there's consequences for coming into our store. We are going to shoot you in the face.
Yep.
And people understood what that meant.
Yeah, and until there's a wall or a line in the sand that says, no, you cannot go past this, people are going to keep pushing it, and it's going to get further and further. I mean, you look at, one of my pastors talked about bathing suits, right? Go back to like the 50s and what a bathing suit looked like in the 50s. And then it's gotten less and less material every year since, right? Crime's the same way. They're going to keep taking an inch until someone says, no, you can't do that anymore.
Absolutely.
So where we're going to be in 20 years, I'm going to be at the beach. Sorry.
With my gun, but at the beach. I you go into the parenting thing, right now we're fostering a little girl. Actually, we've moved into the adoption process, and that's been hard to navigate because I don't slack on disciplining my sons, and so that's a really weird dynamic to navigate because you can't. You can't. And now they're trying to tell us that we can't discipline our own kids. They don't want us to discipline our own kids in the way that we should. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, I'm just going to let all of my kids run amok and not care about any of that.
School systems too. 2 kids get into a fight, both kids are expelled.
Yep.
Right. And, the old days, I would say our generation, like a lot of the teachers who were smarter would not break up a fight until there was a clear winner. Because if they knew that there was a winner, then they break it up. Then those guys usually would go and make up. Right.
Yep.
They got it out of their system. Well, now, if they break it up, nothing's resolved and they go off campus and they escalate. Right.
Yep.
They go and get weapons. They, one person goes after the other person.
It used to be there was lessons learned.
Right.
Usually the mouthy guy got their butt kicked.
Yep.
And learned.
I was the mouthy guy.
Learned not to be the bully anymore because, bad things would happen. And now, and I could go off on the taser thing too. Just in the law enforcement world because it's just. It
has its place, right? You have your socially, not right people who sometimes that's the way to resolve things for them. But
I've seen too many videos, and we've done reactions to videos of cops going straight for the taser when there's a dude with a knife or something like that.
It's a lethal situation.
Yeah, it's a lethal situation. You go to your taser because of either you were trained that way or you just think that you can take care of this with it, and somebody ends up dead or somebody ends up very badly injured, and that's not. I almost think pepper spray is probably a better option than tasers for people in self-defense situations because at least you're getting some kind of biological reaction to it. I've seen too many tasers that don't connect when they're shot or maybe they're not properly charged up, but it's all kinds of that stuff. It's just like, and it kind of gives you a false sense of security as a police officer, a lot of these new cops, because they think, oh, if I taser them, they're just done. Because I remember the class where we all got tasered and people fell on the floor. It's like, This dude's hopped up on some stuff that you've never even heard of.
Right.
He's not feeling any of that, and he's going to stab you.
I cut you off earlier. I apologize.
No, we go on this forever, but the trend within law enforcement big, and when I retired last year, it was as full blown as I've ever seen it. The trend for a lot of cops is at the moment there's any resistance at all, and it doesn't have to be the 6'10" guy hopped up on drugs. Any resistance at all, cops are going to the taser. Oh, the guy, I tried to handcuff him, he pulled away, I'm just going to let go and go to the taser. And I think the reason a lot of cops are doing this is their confidence in their hand-to-hand physical control tactics is zero.
Yeah.
They have no idea, none whatsoever. Even though they've been to the police academy, they go through DT, training. It's like they don't have the skills because they haven't put the time in.
A lot of the academies have removed the DT portion. They put that back on the department because they don't want the liability. The other trend I've seen in the last 12 years is departments used to be able to make their own hires, and now it's been taken away from them. It goes to the city human resources department, and now they're looking for the touchy-feely types instead of the people who are willing to it's a different personality type who can take a punch to the face and keep going without losing their cool, right? Yep. Versus some of these people who want to talk it out. So they look for more the sociology degrees or those other kind of positions.
What was it they called and that they wanted more of in like New York City and stuff? was it counselors or something along those lines? Instead of police officers, we needed to send a counselor. There's a big thing. I think this was in like the 2020 time frame. Like, we need people to go and counsel these people. It's like, you ever counseled a 6'10" guy that's hopped up on drugs with a knife?
Yeah.
It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Go ahead and send your sociology degree there.
So. Yeah. So there's definitely in all of society, this like, well, let's just be nice. Let's just be the nice guy to the problem, and just name the problem, whether it's, how to discipline kids in school. Well, let's not really be mean. We don't want to hurt their feelings. That's why we don't give grades in school anymore. It's why we give everybody a trophy. It's like we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And what you get is a person that grows up that just crumbles at the first sign of any type of resistance or bad thing happening in their life.
Well, one of the studies, for these riots, where you see all the people with the purple hair and, screaming and, yelling and losing their cool, is because basically they come from broken homes and they spend a lot of time in childcare, daycare growing up, right? Well, again, how do you get attention? You get attention by screaming, right? As a child. So that's what's being taught to them. They grow up as an adult and they realize or think that that's the exact same way they get attention and get their way is, I'm going to throw a tantrum again.
Yep. Oh, I had, my wife has some friends that when they were raising their children, it was, well, I'm just going to talk to them because they had been disciplined by their parents and they thought they knew better, and, I'll tell you this, I never got a spanking that I didn't deserve. Probably deserved way more than I got. But when you extrapolate that out and you see what happens to the child when they grow into a teenager, they're unmanageable. Right. They're into everything. They don't have any discipline. They have no standards to follow. And we talk a lot about, setting standards in your home, in your personal life. And if you're not, as a parent, setting standards for your kids, then they're going to have no compass. They're not going to know how to navigate the real world because they're not ready for it, because the real world really hasn't changed. It's still going to kick you when you're down.
And they're probably craving that anyway. I had a buddy of mine just yesterday tell me a story. He went to an air show not too long ago, a huge air show, and he went with some other family members, and one of the kids, one of his family members was a younger kid, like 9 or 10. Their parenting style was, we're just going to let Johnny just decide, if he wants to play with trucks, he can play with trucks. Or if he wants to play with dolls and dress up in girls' clothes, if that's what he wants to do, we'll let him do that. So this kid's kind of really out there on his own and no direction. And so they go to this air show, and the first thing is like F-35s flying over, and he's like, yes, this is so cool. You could tell he was just like connecting with the manly DNA inside of his body. Was like, yes,
testosterone went up like 300 points in the air show.
His parents were like, oh no.
Starts growing a beard.
The other thing they're saying is, the average 20-year-old has the same testosterone level as a 60-year-old these days.
Because 50 years ago. Yeah. Actually, they say 50 years ago, like a 60-year-old had the testosterone level of a 20-year-old right now. Just crazy. But yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, that was another tangent.
Yeah, we definitely go on that. Even though I'm pretty pessimistic kind of about the country and where we're at and the hopes, you can't let it get you down. You can't just be like, well, the heck with this place and I don't care anymore. I mean, we want us to just lead our families, be an example to people, because this country is very resilient. We got a lot of people living here that do want to do the right thing. The dynamic of America even with the economy and just society, it's a strong system that's hard to change. Even though there are changes going on, it's hard to disrupt this thing that's been around for so long. Yeah. So I think we got that going for us. I think we've got, a lot of people in this country that are, driven by their faith, and by family, and we just have to keep plugging away on that.
I think a good example of that is something just recent. See what's going on in North Carolina. The government has failed. Yeah. Failed. Like one of the worst failures I've ever seen in my life to actually support its citizens.
It's not even just failing, it's also hindering.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
And you've got Americans, veterans, police, people this actually has probably been the thing that's given me the most hope here recently, is to see how people from all over the country are pouring into North Carolina. And it's not to be a spectacle or any of that kind of stuff. Yep. It's to go down there and help pull 80-year-old men out of their houses and get diabetics who could die without the medicine they need, get that to them in, horrible, like whole towns washed away. And they're doing that, and they're not asking for anything. They're just going down there and being citizens, caring about, even a community that's not even theirs, but caring about Americans and saying, hey, we're going to stand in the gap. Government's failed, get out of the way. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest hope that I've seen in the last probably year, at least, of, there are still some people in this country that when bad things happen, they're running towards the bad thing.
Rednecks rise up
from it. Yeah, rednecks rise up. Absolutely. All those guys come out of the foothills of Tennessee and all that, and go down there and help. But I think that's just a huge.
It's people with real skills, trade skills, right? People who know how to build things, know how to work tractors and farm equipment and chainsaws.
Yeah, sort of. Take the tourniquets down there. But well, Dave, I know you have you're a busy guy and you've got to get on the road. It was a pleasure to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate
the range time was fantastic, and this was a great sit down. Kind of give everybody a view of somebody who's known in the industry, but doesn't get to do this. Decades of experience.
We should get a t-shirt.
Maybe I'll just title this "Decades of Experience." No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's really cool that your story is just really unique and cool. And we're glad to have you here, and we're glad to do some work with Vertx. It's really cool. And real quick, if you guys are interested in Vertx products, they make great products. We got some review videos coming. Code Savages20, get 20% off at Vertx. That's our discount code. So if you guys are interested in some great gear, hop on their website and use that discount code to get 20% off. We will be back again very soon. And don't forget, before we leave, take Jesus wherever you go and act like you believe. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.